Welcome once again to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton. I'm your host, Spike Spengel. Every single week, Tim addresses retirement planning needs, more specifically solutions for the folks right here in Ohio. Tim, you're looking sharp. How are you feeling this week?
Feeling well. I had my carpal tunnel surgery done on my left hand, so now my hands don't fall asleep sitting here at the desk anymore. So that's good.
Oh, good. Well, just as a reminder, none of us are getting healthier as we move into retirement. So even your financial advisor has to stay healthy. Something that, we've had to talk a lot about this year, and that's about inflation. I'm so glad to be putting this past year in our rearview mirror, moving into our next year. But Tim, what are your thoughts on inflation? Do you see this inflation still sticking around? I mean, we've had, what do you want to say, 12 months of it, 14 months of it? Can we hope to see it starting to slow down in this newer year? Or do you think this is here to stick around for a while?
Well, inflation's here to stick around forever because it's always been here. The question is, how much inflation are we going to see? This year has been an anomaly, but I could also make the argument that the last few years have been an anomaly as well. We've seen, very low interest rates leading up and into this year. And, so as we see this spike, no pun intended.
I'll take it.
we understand that this is still a bit of an anomaly. I mean, I don't think we're going to average 6, 7, 8% inflation forever.
No, but on the other hand, I think it was Fortune magazine. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly which one. We have all of those magazines that are on the desk and in our group room together. We do our team planning meetings and all that kind of stuff. But one of the articles was saying, don't expect that inflation to come back down to the 2 or 3% that it had been holding for the last few years. Mm-hmm. In fact, some reports saying we might want to consider inflation at more like a 4 or 5% going through the near future. Are you adjusting plans at the office? Are you adjusting clients' plans for this kind of inflation? Because that is a much different number than 2 or 3%.
It is a much bigger number. I guess I'm taking a longer view from a planning standpoint on where we see inflation. We have always traditionally used 3% as a planning number. And for the last 10 years, people have told me that was too high. And now maybe it's too low. But I think as you look out long-term, 15, 20 years, I think that 3% number is still a safe number. In the next couple of years, I don't have a crystal ball, but it wouldn't surprise me that it's going to be a little higher. It's going to be a little bit higher to bring up those years where it's been really low back up to that 3% average.
Right. Well, one of the things that I really love about your program and just speaking with you in general, as a financial advisor of Axum Planning and Wealth, you deal with people on an everyday basis. You're not just reading the headlines. You're not just out here broadcasting on television, but you figure out and help people with their individual solutions. Maybe do you have a case story you can share with us about inflation?
Sure. Well, just recently, actually about a week ago, we had a new client that came in, and they actually had a retirement plan that was done by an advisor at another firm. And they brought that in with them to kind of share with us, to kind of show this is kind of where we think we are. And that's super helpful, by the way, Spike. When somebody, the more information they provide for us, the better we can see things, right?
So a good thing to start off with is they already had a plan.
They had a
of some
plan.
sort. They were getting kicked off and coming in maybe for a second opinion or just another look?
Yeah, they were looking for a second opinion. And the plan itself was pretty good. As we looked through it, there was a lot of things in the plan that we thought were spot on, but there was one big miss, and it was inflation. They were looking at an income need in retirement of about $5,000 a month to help supplement their Social Security and a small pension plan. And as we looked at the plan, and we were asking them, well, is that $5,000 in today's dollars or are those future dollars? They said, well, no, those are in today's dollars. So as we were looking at their savings plan, we saw that they were actually saving towards the end goal to be able to produce $5,000 a month 20 years from now.
Okay, so
Right.
they're doing future numbers. That's
Right.
good.
And so the problem is that they weren't going to need $5,000 a month 20 years from now. They're going to need $10,000 a month 20 years from
You
now.
just tricked me, Tim. I thought I was positively affirming what you were saying, and
Well, that was
you just made me out to be the
that
goofy
was
monkey.
that was fishing. I was just kind of
You did. You reeled
reeled
me in hook, line, and sinker, and now I'm in the net inside the boat.
And so, I mean, obviously, that's a big miss, and because their monthly savings goal was most likely going to get them to that 5,000 mark, maybe even the $7,500 mark, but it was not going to get them to $10,000. And as we talked to them about the inflation factor, and I don't know if it was just a mistake by the advisor or if they just used a really small inflation number, but nonetheless, it was a very big problem. Now, the good news is that they have 20 years to fix it. And so, we've simply recalculated the number. They have additional income that they can put towards savings, and they're going to be just fine. But this is a great example of somebody who thought they had a plan. They went to a professional, but the plan they ended up with had, the plan is only as accurate as the numbers that you put into the plan.
What do we say in financial planning all the time? Garbage in, garbage out. If
Right.
you don't put in the right kinds of numbers and all of the factors, you're not going to get out the true need that you're going to need down the road.
And this was a great couple. I
Yeah.
mean, they had everything going for them. They had the additional dollars to actually hit the right savings goal. They didn't know.
Is there? Do you have any reservations on somebody getting a second opinion on your work?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think making sure that you get to do this once. And we say this all the time on the show. When you retire, you become the CEO of your retirement company. And so the people that you have employed by your retirement company are pretty important. If something goes wrong, that's on you, right? If your CPA doesn't get it right, or your estate planning doesn't get it right, or your wealth management team doesn't get it right, they're still going home every night. They're still having dinner. This is an extremely important decision.
Tim, you also brought up something for me, though, that makes me worry. These folks went to a professional. Like you said, they've got time to make up this mistake. But I also start to think about folks who are doing it on their own online calculators, because they're the ones putting in the numbers. They're the ones making the assumptions on their salary. They're the ones putting in the numbers for inflation and how much earnings they're going to have on those retirement accounts. And are they putting in true numbers? And should we be doing our retirement planning alone on those online calculators?
Well, I will leave that up to the viewers at home. If you want to risk it, that is certainly an option. Or for free, you can come in and have somebody who's done this for the last 30 years sit down with you and put in the right numbers and make a plan for you that is going to be accurate.
Tim, we've got to take a very short break right now. Folks, you can call and get started on your own complimentary retirement blueprint by calling the phone number, 855-684-3485. Now, as you can imagine, Tim is broadcasting all around the area here. So if we get flooded with phone calls, your appointment's going to take that much longer. So call right away, 855-684-3485. More of the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton right after this.
Retirement is about choosing where you want to go and mapping out a plan to get there. That's why I created the Retirement Blueprint. Of course, things don't always go according to plan. Come learn how our team can help you avoid potential hazards and find alternate routes. We're here to do life with you and share your journey. Let us blueprint your life to keep you on track to make sure you get the most out of retirement. Are you on the road to success? Call us today for a complimentary review to find out. Let us plan your tomorrow today.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton, where we talk about retirement planning solutions for you, the folks out here in Ohio. Tim, what about personally? Most of my retirement planning and focus has come from my own family. I look at what's happened with my grandmothers, both of them needing to go into long-term care. My grandfathers who did it, like you've said before, they did it all right. They just didn't realize how long their spouses were maybe going to live. What about yourself? What have you learned from your own family?
Well, Inflation touched our family in kind of a different way. I mean, remember that inflation is a slow erosion of purchasing power, unless you take out 2022, right? But normally, you just notice it a little bit year over year. Things get a little bit more expensive. The money goes a little less far. Even with pensions, we see, the increasing cost of health care decreases the pension check amount sometimes. And so there's all these little factors. And it makes me think of my conversation with my grandfather when I graduated from college, Morehead State University, go Eagles, in 1992.
Nice plug. Well done.
I'm sure that somebody from the university will call me. So this is 1992. And my grandfather was talking to me. Obviously, I'm brand new, so I'm sure he was a little skeptical on, he probably had a lot more investment experience than I did at that point. But he was just, talking to me, and he's like, Tim, I'm really kind of struggling. He's like, my income has really decreased. And I asked him, tell me a little bit more about that. And he said, well, it's been these CD rates. He's like, when I first started out, and I retired, he worked for Ashland Oil. He was getting $10,000 a year on a $100,000 CD, so 10% return. And like most people, they're taking the income out, the principal's staying there, and they just continue to renew those. Well, by the time I graduated from college, his income was down to $3,000 a year. Now, his $100,000 was still worth $100,000, but he was only getting a 3% return on that CD. And so you can imagine over a number of years, things didn't get cheaper, right? They got more expensive, and his income was going down. So it was a double whammy. It wasn't just the inflation piece of rising cost. It was also the reduction in rates and interest rates over time that got him.
And we've talked about this, you've talked about this a lot before, that today's retirement is not like retirement used to be. So one thing you said in there was him using CDs. My grandfathers did the same things as well. But we know what was happening over the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Those bank CD rates, they weren't there. Now, we've seen interest rates go up. We saw them go up 7 times last year. I don't know what's going to happen throughout this year, but interest rates on homes for mortgages going up closer 6 to 7%. We're starting to see those a little bit better rates coming back to CDs, but I think this is what people forget. If you get 3% out of a bank CD, what is inflation still at today? If we go back to the beginning part of the segment.
It's a 0% return.
Right.
It's one of those things, and this is kind of where it comes into the diversification piece. When you put everything in one thing, you end up with a problem. And if I'm riding that CD rate roller coaster, and certainly the last 10 or 15 years have been very difficult in that area, because in most cases, if I was even covering inflation, I'm not growing. And so you think about that, Spike, and if I'm averaging a 3% inflation rate over 10 years, my purchasing power has gone down 50%. But my CD value is still exactly the same as it was 10 years ago. So you can utilize, CDs and fixed rates for income, but you also have to have a growth component to your portfolio. There has to be other dollars there that are going to grow to help offset that cost of inflation.
Right. So, and one of the things I always like to remind the viewers is that Tim isn't just a handsome broadcaster here in Ohio. He's a financial planner with Axum Planning and Wealth. You do this in the offices every single day for folks. Solutions, ideas, concepts, better places for a return. What are you doing besides suggesting things like CDs for people's safe money?
Well, we have looked at, over the years, there's been lots of different areas that you could go for safe money. And usually when we say safe money, Spike, we're talking about people who need income. And so as we think through, the normal conversations that you have with financial advisors, a lot of times they will talk about asset allocation, and when you get to retirement that you should have, this 60-40 portfolio or 50-50 portfolio stocks to bonds. And the problem with that is that if you go through a year like we did this year, where bonds went down, stocks went down, everything went down, where do you hide?
Yeah.
So we try to look at the different buckets of money and give them jobs. And the way that we do that is we look at the income bucket as a place where the money I put in that income bucket really needs to not have any volatility involved in it at all. And so really there's only a couple places that you can find that. Obviously, traditional pension plans, Social Security, they don't have any type of market loss involved in them. And then we also look to fixed index annuities. Yes, I just said that word.
Just said the A word.
I said the A word.
Here we go. Here we go. Before a commercial break,
right.
I cannot believe
I
you
know.
jumped
I
into
said the A
annuities.
word before a commercial
But
break.
can we be honest out there? There are some shorter term ones that I've heard, because we talk about the bank CDs. They're creeping up in their interest rates, but there's other ones that are called, I believe, MYGAs.
Yes.
Right? MYG, a multi-year guaranteed annuity.
It's basically a fixed rate annuity.
And they offer in kind of the same way, right? They 1 year, 3 years, 5 years.
Yes.
You get your money back. There's a guaranteed rate of interest. What do you think about those?
Well, I think we haven't talked about them at all until this year. The rates have been so low, as they have been with everything else, but now we're seeing rates in the 4-5% plus range on guaranteed money, right? And so it's a legitimate option today where, you know, we can actually lock in a little bit longer term if we want on the rates and not ride that, you know, that 3-month or 6-month renewal roller coaster that we have with CDs.
Right, right. And what do you think about possibly laddering some of that, kind of dipping our toes in the water? Because do you see interest rates continuing to go up this year? I mean, is now the time to look at that, or does it matter? Is that almost like trying to time the interest rate market, like we try not to time the stock market? Does it matter about the timing on this right now? Do we want to pick up the phone today, or do we wait for interest rates to go up?
Well, I think that when you find a rate you like, I think that you take it, right? I mean, I think that today's rates are the highest rates we've seen in years. And so if I have money, lazy money, that's maybe sitting around in a checking or savings account, or maybe I have a CD that's coming due that I was getting 2 or 3% on, this is an opportunity for people to take advantage right now of these rates. And I love the idea of laddering them. And for the folks at home, when we say to ladder, what that means is we might put a little bit of money in a 2-year and a little bit of money in a 3-year and a little bit of money in a 4-year and a little bit of money in a 5-year, and we kind of spread the money out to take advantage of some of those higher rates. And then we always have money coming due, which helps us a little bit as interest rates go down. Sometimes we can lock in, you know, longer term, you know, as they renew.
Right, right. So it's kind of like hedging your own retirement plan bets.
Sure.
We're going to ladder them along the way. People have done it with CDs. We can do it with these multi-year guaranteed annuities in 1, 3, 5 years. All kinds of options, but it can be confusing if you've never gone into retirement. So we're going to take a very short break. Folks, if you would like to get your own retirement plan strategy that includes income, taxes, estate planning, meaning leaving money to any of your heirs, whether it's just your spouse or also to your kids, give us a call right here so Tim can get started on a complimentary retirement blueprint. Call 855-684-3485. We're going to talk about, can you really cut corners on estate planning, when we get back right after this.
We're passionate about making sure our clients live stress-free in retirement. We do that with the Retirement Blueprint. It's our trademark planning process designed to help you navigate to and through retirement. When you're nearing retirement, it's essential that you have a written plan and know exactly how that plan will work for you. Let us show you how 27 years of experience can make a difference in your plan.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. I'm your host, Spike Spengel. He teaches me every single week about retirement planning strategies, and we get to share it with you, Ohio. One of the things I've got to ask you, look, nobody wants to pay those legal fees. And for all of our lawyer friends out there, when you think about calling somebody, we think of, you know, the retainer and the hourly costs, and it can just be really expensive. So what do? we start letting our fingers do the research for us out on the internet, right? And so can we use things like those online tools for estate planning? Can't I just legally do it online, spend maybe a couple $100s to get a document or two and kind of cut out the middleman? Have you seen plans done well with things online?
Well, Spike, you absolutely can do that. You could write out your will on a napkin and sign it, and technically it's a legal document.
And I appreciate that you are never sarcastic with
No.
me.
But here's the thing. I mean, Dayton, if you've spent 30 years saving a retirement nest egg, you've paid off your house, you've done everything right, is the internet the way that you want to protect that through, one of the...
Saving a couple of bucks.
Save a couple of bucks. It's not the place to cut corners. It's not the place to save money. The cost is not that great. I mean, for example, in our office, for someone to do the advanced directives, so that's your power of attorneys, healthcare, your healthcare power of attorney, financial power of attorney, living will. That's the plug me, unplug me one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
You're welcome, Spike.
I appreciate you dumbing it down for me.
Yeah, I mean
understand
that people understand. Oh, that form.
No, but yeah, the living will, your medical directives,
Right.
but you could also have a financial directives, right? So who's in
Correct.
charge of the so my dad's mom did that, and father, they had the separate. So his sister was in charge of anything that had to do with medical choices, and my father was luckily in charge of everything that had to do with finance. It's nice to be able to split it, because if you put all of that to one person, it's a lot to manage somebody's estate.
It really comes down to personalities. The healthcare power of attorney is that person that's very level-headed. They work well under stress. Maybe they have a little bit of a medical background, but at the end of the day, they can make decisions without letting the emotions factor into it. And usually when we have that conversation with clients, one of the kids pops in their head and they're like, hey, that's Johnny. The financial power of attorney may be a completely different person, just like you had mentioned, and I think there's value in that. That's a person that's good with money. They've done well with their own savings. They can jump online and get your bills paid, and you know that it's going to happen. They're very responsible that way.
Right.
But as we look at that package with all those advanced directives, a trust, you're talking about less than $1,500. For $1,500, somebody can literally get all of those things done properly by somebody who's an actual estate planning attorney. And, one of the problems that we see, Spike, is that just because you go to an attorney doesn't mean you're always getting the best advice.
Now, wait a second. I thought that's what we're saying. So I'm guessing that you've experienced somebody in the office.
We have, and this is a story that I have shared so many times. We had a client that had an estate plan, went to another attorney in town in North Dayton, and showed them the plan. And she said, "You know what? This is too complicated. It's a big, thick book, too complicated." And the attorney's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" She's like, "Well, I'm just worried about the house and it going to the nursing home. If I go into a nursing home, I want my house to go to my daughter." And the attorney, who was not an estate planning attorney or a general practice attorney, said, "Well, we can fix this up real easy. We're going to basically put the house in the daughter's name. She's going to lease it back to you for the rest of your life for $1. And after 5 years, it will be completely protected from the nursing home." Okay. And
this isn't normally how I hear this being done, but sounds pretty reasonable and easy at first.
It is easy, and she is right. If all of those things happen, indeed the house would be protected. The problem was her daughter got into a traffic accident, and someone ended up passing away. She was sued, had to file bankruptcy, and so mom gets a call from the bankruptcy attorney saying, "You have two choices. You can either buy your house back out of bankruptcy, take a mortgage, or move out." And so, unfortunately, this lady had to actually take a mortgage out on a house that had been paid off for 25 years to stay in her house, all because of some bad estate planning advice. She could have easily set up an irrevocable trust, accomplished the same thing, would have cost her a little bit more money, but there would have been no issues with the daughter
Yeah.
having an accident or anything else for that matter.
And it is the same way when it comes to financial planning. There's a difference between an accumulation advisor and a retirement planning advisor. You help people with the decumulation of assets. How do you provide income from your savings accounts, your investment accounts, your Social Security? And so in the same vein, you need to know what kind of advisor you're going to.
Right.
What kinds of questions should somebody ask? If somebody's sitting across from a financial advisor, just like you go into that attorney and you go, how many estate plans have you put together before? Not, are you a lawyer and can you do this for me? It's, what is the main focus of your practice? What do you normally do? If somebody were to ask you, what kind of financial advisor are you? What is your answer?
Well, we're retirement only. That's what we do. We work with people that are approaching retirement or are in retirement. And that is the sole focus of our practice. And at Axum, we have not only on, I help with the planning work, but we also have a financial advisory team that does wealth management. We have an estate planning attorney that all she does is estate planning. We have a CPA that does tax planning for retirees. And so the level of advice that you get in that situation is a lot different than what most people find when they start looking out there at their different options when it comes to retirement planning.
We've covered a lot on today's program. You've gone from inflation to estate planning to investment strategies. Is this a typical day at the offices of Axum?
It is pretty much a typical day, and one of the reasons I love my job is the stories and the clients, because everybody that comes in, we always joke that people come in with a box of puzzle pieces and give them to us to put together, but they get to tell us what that picture is supposed to look like when we get that puzzle pieces all in place.
Nice, nice. And that's the whole idea behind retirement planning strategies. Tim, that's going to be all the time that we have for today's program. Folks, if you'd like to get started on your own retirement blueprint, it's going to take a look at your investments, your tax strategy, making sure that you have estate planning. You can even talk about your medical choices down the road, including all of those annual Medicare enrollments and should you have long-term care options. All of these concepts and pieces put together are part of the retirement blueprint, and it is complimentary to the viewers of Tim's program. Call 855-684-3485. Thank you for watching the Retirement Blueprint. We'll be back again next week.